Think about this. What if the most influential figure in all of human history wasn't what you've always been led to believe? What if Jesus, as he's been presented for centuries, wasn't simply a historical figure, but the bearer of a hidden message, a coded cosmic symbol holding the deepest keys to the human soul? Imagine that everything you think you know about Jesus has only been the surface of a much vaster and more transformative knowledge. What if his true identity isn't limited to a literal account? Rather, it's veiled beneath layers of ancient wisdom, esoteric codes and universal archetypes. Today, we're going to lift that veil, and what you discover may forever change your view of the world, spirituality, and yourself. This isn't your average video. This is a profound journey into the most powerful symbol in history. And the final, most important revelation is reserved for last. It will be like lighting a torch in the darkness. But before we delve into this mystery, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with those seeking something beyond the visible. Comment below who you think Jesus really was. Your words can spark reflection in other seekers. Get ready, because over the next few minutes, surprising revelations will emerge from the shadows. And perhaps in the end you will no longer see Jesus, but see through him. Since the dawn of humanity, the symbol has been the language of the soul. Ancient cultures from every continent have used myths and parables, and archetypal figures to convey truths that transcend words. In this context, the figure of Jesus of Nazareth rises as one of the most powerful symbols ever conceived for scholars of esotericism. Jesus is not only a historical figure, he is an archetype of the inner Christ, a living symbol of the spiritual awakening that dwells in every human being. It's not about denying his earthly existence, but about understanding that his figure holds a much deeper truth, that of the soul uniting with divinity. Through the process of inner transmutation, authors such as Carl Jung, Rudolf Steiner, and Joseph Campbell have explored this symbolic dimension of the figure of Jesus. Jung interpreted him as a manifestation of the archetype of the self, the totality of being. Steiner presented him as the embodiment of a solar consciousness, a Christian force that descends into matter to redeem it. Campbell, for his part, integrated him into his study of the hero's journey, recognizing in his life a universal structure that resonates in myths of all cultures. Jesus, then, would not simply be a prophet or an external redeemer, but a mirror of the human soul on its path back to the divine. His virgin birth represents the awakening of a pure consciousness. His baptism, the immersion in the waters of the unconscious to be reborn. His miracles, the awakening of the soul's latent powers. His crucifixion, the death of the ego. And his resurrection, the triumph of the spirit over matter. In this context, many apocryphal gospels were excluded from the official Bible by the Council of Nicaea. In the 4th century, valuable clues are offered. The Gospel of Thomas, for example, does not narrate miracles nor speak of external salvation. It focuses on inner knowledge, on gnosis. In it, Jesus says, "The kingdom is within you and outside of you. When you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father." This is a central key to Gnostic thought. Divinity is not outside, but within. But why was this vision hidden or distorted for centuries? What interests lay behind a literal interpretation that turned Jesus into an idol instead of a mirror? The power structures understood from very early on that a humanity empowered from within is uncontrollable, and that is why the symbol was veiled. The cross, which once represented the union of the divine and the human, was turned into an instrument of guilt. The inner Christ, instead of being activated in each person, was projected outward as a distant figure. This distortion was not only religious, it was a civilizing strategy. The figure of Jesus, stripped of his esoteric power, was transformed into a dogma. But the soul never forgets. That is why, throughout the centuries, movements such as Gnosticism, alchemy, Rosicrucianism, Hermeticism, and Theosophy have kept alive the flame of the true Christic message. And that message is more relevant than ever. Jesus did not come to found a religion. He came to reveal a path. His profound message is a guide for the transmutation of the human being from the lead of ignorance to the gold of wisdom. His true church is not made of stone, but of the conscious heart. And his kingdom is not of this world because it exists on a more subtle plane, that of awakening. In the next few minutes, we will explore how this symbol has been encoded throughout the centuries and how we can activate that Christian energy within us. It is not about believing or not believing. It is about remembering, reconnecting, and reigniting the divine spark. Because when we understand that Jesus is a living symbol of what we can become, everything changes. It's no longer about external worship, but about inner initiation. We no longer walk behind him, but with him as a reflection of the same light. Are you willing to look beyond the literal? Are you ready to decipher the true code of Jesus? Then stay until the end, because what will be revealed later will be the key that unites all the pieces. And I assure you, it is the most powerful revelation of all. Throughout history, the symbol of Jesus has been reinterpreted, veiled, manipulated, and in many cases transformed into a caricature of its depth. Original, but the schools of ancient wisdom always knew that behind the literal veil lay a spiritual map. Jesus is not simply a religious figure, but a living code that points to the awakening of consciousness. One of the most revealing aspects is the parallel between Jesus and other archetypal figures in the spiritual history of humanity. Horus in Egypt, Krishna in India, Mithras in Persia, Dionysus in Greece. All were born of a virgin, performed miracles, were persecuted, died, and were resurrected. Coincidence? No. This is symbolic language that transcends cultures and dogmas. Each of these avatars represents the eternal process of the human soul seeking its divinization. The researcher Joseph Campbell called it the monomyth, a universal narrative in which the hero, symbol of the soul, separates from the ordinary world, undergoes initiatory trials, dies symbolically, and is resurrected as a transformed being. Jesus embodies this archetype with absolute clarity. His life, passion, death, and resurrection are not simply historical events, but stages of the inner journey of every human being seeking awakening. And this is where the symbol comes to life. The birth in a manger represents the humble beginning of every soul that incarnates in matter. Amidst the limitations of the physical world, the manger is not just a stable, it is the human body, the living temple of the spirit. The three wise men who arrived guided by a star symbolize the higher forces of mind, emotion, and will that come when the soul begins to awaken its divine spark. The baptism in the Jordan. It symbolizes the descent of the Spirit upon matter, the recognition of the divine identity that has remained dormant. It is here that the voice of heaven says, "This is my beloved Son," not as an exclusive designation, but as an affirmation of the inner Christ who lives in all. John the Baptist represents the lower self that must give way to the higher self. That is why he says, "He must increase, but I must decrease." The miracles of Jesus, healings, multiplication of loaves, walking on water, are not only supernatural demonstrations. These are symbolic expressions of the power of the awakened soul. To heal is to reintegrate, to multiply is to manifest abundance from consciousness. To walk on water is to transcend agitated emotions, a symbol of spiritual dominion over unconscious forces. Each parable is a fractal of hidden wisdom. When Jesus speaks of the kingdom of heaven, he is not referring to a physical place. The kingdom is a state of consciousness. It is within you here and now. That is why he teaches in symbols. That is why he says, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." Only the initiate, the one who has refined their soul, can understand the true message. The triumphal entry into Jerusalem symbolizes the entry of the enlightened soul into its own center. Jerusalem in Hebrew means city of peace, but that peace is not from the external world. It is the peace of the unified soul. And that instant is the prelude to the passion, the great test of the ego. The crucifixion, far from being a tragic event, is the climax of the initiatory process. The vertical beam represents the spiritual axis, the higher self, the horizontal beam matter. The personality being crucified, the soul elevates the personality towards divinity. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. It is total surrender, the surrender of the ego. The veil of the temple is torn. The soul is no longer separate from the spirit. And then the tomb, the silence, the emptiness. This stage is crucial. It is the womb of transformation. The old dies, but the new has not yet been born. Every initiate passes through this dark night. It is the moment of greatest darkness. Just before dawn and resurrection arrives, not as a return to the physical body, but as a symbol of the ascent of consciousness. The resurrected Christ is not the Jesus of before. He's a new vibration, a new reality. That is why Mary Magdalene does not recognize him at first. He has been reborn, and what happens next? Jesus appears to his disciples, but he does not stay. He tells them that the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, will come. This is another key. The external teacher must depart so that the internal teacher may awaken. Christ has been sown in each one of us. This is the true legacy, the activation of the inner Christ, the divine spark that dwells in every soul and awaits. To be awakened, as the alchemists understood it, the goal was not to transform metals, but the human being, from the lead of ignorance to the gold of enlightenment. But this vision was declared heretical. The Gnostics were persecuted. The Gospels that contained these teachings were hidden or destroyed. Inner knowledge was replaced by external dogma. The image was worshipped, but the message was forgotten. Temples of stone were erected, while the inner temple remained empty. And yet the symbol does not die. It lives in silence. It lives in dreams, in myths, in symbols that transcend reason. It lives in sacred art, in Gothic cathedrals, in stained glass windows that tell of the soul's alchemy. It lives in you, yes, in you. Because this message is not just history, it is your story. Your soul, too, has been crucified on the timbers of time. It has also descended into the hells of fear. But it can also rise again. And now ask yourself, what part of you is still asleep? What aspect of your being waits to be reborn? Because when you understand that Jesus is more than an external figure, changes everything. You no longer wait for salvation. You begin to manifest it. You no longer repeat prayers. You embody them. You no longer follow Jesus. You become the living Christ. And the most shocking revelation is yet to come. Because in the next part we will explore an ancient secret that has been veiled from the eyes of the world. A symbol hidden in the cross itself, a truth that was sealed in hermetic codes and that only now begins to reveal itself. Stay tuned, because what is coming may open doors you never imagined. Throughout the centuries, the cross has become the most powerful symbol of Christianity. However, few understand its true esoteric meaning. For most, it represents suffering, redemption, and sacrifice. But in mystery schools, the cross is a map of the soul, a cosmic diagram, an alchemical code of inner awakening. It is not an instrument of torture, but a portal. The vertical axis represents the spirit, the eternal, the immutable. The horizontal axis represents matter, the earthly. The temporality of the point where they intersect is not accidental. It is the heart, the center. There, transmutation occurs. There, the dense rises to the subtle. There, the ego dies and the inner Christ is born. In Hermeticism, this cross relates to the four elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Jesus crucified between two thieves represents the soul between dual forces. One ascends, the other descends. One represents the redeemed aspect. The other, the aspect that still resists transformation. This powerful scene is not merely historical. It is an inner drama that we all experience at the crossroads of the soul. Alchemy also codified this process. For the alchemists, the symbol of the cross appears above the circle as a representation of the incarnate spirit. The great work was nothing other than bringing the human soul to its full realization through the symbolic death of the lower self. Jesus, then, is not the end of the story, but the key to a universal process that occurs within every seeker. The rose cross, the quintessential esoteric symbol. Delving even deeper into this meaning, the rose, the flower of the soul, blooms in the center of the cross, signifying that from the pain of conscious sacrifice springs light. It is not suffering as punishment, but as a catalyst for transformation. Rudolf Steiner explained it clearly. Christ is a solar force that incarnates on earth to allow the human soul to ascend, again to the spiritual heights from which it came. This is the true resurrection, not an event that occurred 2,000 years ago, but a call that resonates here and now. Christ is not a man. He is a consciousness, a vibration, a frequency that each person can access through their own inner transfiguration. Furthermore, many occult manuscripts suggest that Jesus' body after the resurrection was no longer of flesh and blood, but of light. Some mystics, such as the Desert Fathers and Sufi masters, spoke of transfiguration as the ultimate destiny of humankind. The body of light, the Merkaba, the radiant garment of the enlightened soul. The Gnostic Gospels left no room for doubt. The true Christ was a spark of divine light that descended in Jesus to guide the human soul toward its liberation. And that spark was not exclusive. It was universal. It was in everyone. That's why the great secret wasn't that Jesus was divine. The great secret is that you are too, that every human being contains within them the same Christian seed waiting to be activated. But this knowledge was silenced, persecuted, declared heresy. Why? Because a human being who recognizes their inner divinity no longer submits, no longer needs intermediaries, do not fear eternal punishment. They do not live in guilt, they live in conscience. They live in truth, they live in freedom. And that is dangerous for power structures. The Neoplatonic philosopher said that the human soul, upon descending to the material world, forgets its divine origin. Jesus came to remind us of this, not with dogmas, but with his own example. He was the mirror in which we should see ourselves reflected, not to imitate his external actions, but to replicate his inner journey. And it is here that many feel a profound calling, because it is not a faith imposed from the outside. It is an inner resonance. Something in the deepest part of the soul recognizes this truth when it hears it. Not because someone has said it, but because it already lived in the heart. Authentic spirituality is not based on beliefs, but on experiences, on states of being, on inner vibrations, on profound silence. And the hidden message of Jesus points to this, not to repeating empty formulas, but to embodying Christian consciousness in everyday life. In the Christian mystical tradition, this was known as the imitation of Christ, but not as an external copy, but as an internal process. St. John of the Cross expressed it in his poetry, to come to taste everything, desire to have taste in nothing, to come to possess everything, desire to possess nothing. It is the emptying of the ego, the total surrender, so that the true light may dwell. Jesus did not teach religion, he taught awakening. And religion in its purest form is not a system of beliefs, but a bridge to the eternal, a reconnection, a return to the origin. That is why all the great mystics of all traditions, when they reached the heights of consciousness, they spoke a similar language: love, unity, silence, light. Eckhart Tolle, in modern times, expresses it clearly. Christ is not Jesus's last name. Christ is your essence, your inner being. This statement may seem radical, but it is the echo of an eternal truth. When Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," he was not referring to himself, but to the Christian consciousness that he embodied. I am is the name of God revealed to Moses. It is the center of all conscious existence. And so the big question arises, how to activate that inner Christ? How to awaken that dormant spark? The answer lies within you, in your life, in your daily decisions, in how you choose to love, serve, forgive, and create. You don't need temples, rituals, or vestments. You need presence. You need silence. You need truth. Because true initiation occurs in the heart. But there is a final key, a revelation sealed in ancient Hermetic texts, a symbol that unifies everything you have heard until now. A truth so profound that understanding it, the figure of Jesus, will take on a new meaning beyond all religion. culture, or time, and that is what you will discover in the next part. What was hidden from the eyes of the world for centuries, the supreme symbol, the most luminous secret of all. There is a symbol that has been present from the beginning, visible to all but understood by very few. A symbol so powerful that when revealed, it completely transforms our vision of Jesus, the soul, and the universe. This symbol has been encoded in ancient temples, in mystical manuscripts, in cathedrals, in sacred works of art, and in the most sacred texts of humanity. It is the symbol of the solar Christ. For millennia, civilizations have venerated the sun as a source of life, consciousness, and renewal. The ancient Egyptians knew it as Ra, the Incas as Inti, the Hindus as Surya. But in all these cultures, the sun was more than an astrophysicist. It was a living metaphor for the divinity that dwells in every being, a symbol of the enlightened soul that is reborn every day and dies every sunset. And Jesus rises again with each sunrise. In this solar key, he becomes the bearer of light. It's no coincidence that the first Christians called him Sol Invictus, the sun that cannot be conquered. In Gnostic writings, he is described as the ray of light descended from on high, the pure emanation of the eternal Logos. The cross itself, when written within a circle, represents the sun, the incarnate spirit that radiates life through the four cardinal points of the human soul. This Christian vision is not new, it is eternal. In the Corpus Hermeticum, attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, it is taught that the sun is the eye of God, and whoever contemplates the sun contemplates their heavenly Father. Jesus reflected this light not as something exclusive, but as a living expression of what every being can become when they awaken their divine nature. Esoteric astrology also points to this mystery. Jesus is born on the winter solstice, when the sun appears to die for 3 days before rising again in the sky. This cosmic event symbolizes the descent of the soul into matter, and his subsequent spiritual resurrection is the same universal pattern, the same cycle of the soul. And that is why so many archetypal figures share this narrative, not because they copied each other, but because they expressed the same eternal truth under different names, cultures, and languages. The symbol of the solar Christ is universal. It is the inner light that guides every soul toward its fullness. But why was this vision hidden? Because the symbol liberates, and those who wish to control fear freedom, turning Jesus into an object of external worship. It allows the manipulation of consciousness, but understanding it as a living symbol of the empowered human soul awakens inner revolutions. That's why the Essenes, the Gnostics, the Cathars, the Templars, and so many other movements were persecuted. They all understood that the true Christ was not in authority, but in the heart of every human being. Modern science is beginning to touch upon this truth under other names. Quantum physics speaks of the interconnection of everything that exists. Neuroscience explores elevated states of consciousness. Biology reveals that light literally dwells in our cells. We are beings of light, on a journey of remembrance and awakening. And here comes the most important revelation of all. Jesus did not come to be worshipped. He came to be activated within you. He is the symbol of the soul that remembers its divine origin. He is the model of transfiguration, the call to ascend from the darkness of the ego to the light of the spirit. He does not ask you to follow him blindly, but to walk your own path of crucifixion and resurrection, of the death of the ego and the birth of the true self. The much-discussed second coming is not an external event. It is the awakening of Christ consciousness within humanity. It is the moment we cease projecting outward what has always been within, when we recognize that the kingdom of heaven will not come with visible signs, because the kingdom is already among you. This changes everything. You no longer need intermediaries. You no longer need to wait for salvation. You no longer need to fear punishment, because the instant you recognize your light, the darkness begins to dissipate, and then something profound happens. You stop looking outside and begin to remember who you are, where you come from, and where you are going. Jesus is not who they made you believe he is. He is not the stone idol, nor the stern judge, nor the defeated martyr. He is the eternal symbol of the sovereign soul. He is the mirror of your divinity. He is the solar fire that burns silently in the depths of your being. He is you in your highest form, and you are him when you awaken. So now I ask you, are you willing to stop looking at the cross as a symbol of death and begin to see it as a portal of rebirth? Are you willing to ignite that solar spark within you? Are you ready to live not as someone who worships Jesus, but as someone who lives at the same frequency as his consciousness? The revelation has been made. The hidden symbol has been revealed. What you do with this truth is your path, your initiation. Jesus did not come to found a religion. He came to ignite a revolution of the soul, and that revolution begins with you. Thank you for watching.